Today, I'd like to tell you about non-duality or non-dualism. The meaning of this concept is hard to nail down. First, I'd like to briefly talk about dualism. The famous French mathematician, philosopher, and metaphysicist René Descartes in 1637 wrote Je pense donc je suis, or I think, therefore I am. But Descartes was famous for holding another view as well, called dualism. In dualism, the body is made up of res extensa. Its essential property is that it is spatially extended. The mind, on the other hand, is made up of res cogitans. Its essential property is that it thinks, and the two are separate. For this reason, Descartes, according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, was a substance dualist. Most Western philosophical traditions concur with this mind-body dualism, and the idea also has representation in Indian philosophy, namely the Samkhya and Yoga traditions. In Samkhya and Yoga, a line is drawn between consciousness itself, or Purusha, and primordial materiality, or Prakriti. An important difference between Descartes' dualism and the Samkhya idea of dualism is that in Samkhya, the intellect, ego, and mind are all considered unconscious. This means that the mind is different from consciousness itself, which is considered to be non-material and uninvolved in human actions. While Cartesian dualism and Samkhya Yoga dualism have their differences, they both agree that there is a fundamental difference between two things. Descartes calls it mind and body, Samkhya calls it Purusha and Prakriti, but the end result is that there are two distinct, basically incompatible things. This is where non-dualism comes in. The term non-dualism came from the Sanskrit Advaita, meaning not two, or not different. It arose out of a rejection of Samkhya dualism. Similarly to dualism, non-dualism is an umbrella term, which refers to many different schools of thought. Some describe it as the non-difference of subject and object, or, according to Wikipedia, the common identity of metaphysical phenomena and the absolute. Another way of describing it is the non-duality of duality and non-duality. This paradoxical phrase challenges our long-held belief in dualistic thinking. Non-dualism also does away with the distinction between God and ourselves. In Advaita Vedanta, non-duality rejects the difference of Atman and Brahman. Atman means a person's soul. Brahman means the ultimate reality underlying all phenomena. So if those two are not different, then realizing this is considered moksha or vimutti, release from suffering and samsara. In his 2008 book, The Origins of Yoga and Tantra, Jeffrey Samuel explains much about the history of non-dualistic thought in Buddhist philosophy and psychology. Samuel describes how, in the first millennium CE, the idea of a pervasive and underlying fabric of reality came to the forefront of Buddhist Madhyamaka and Yogacara schools, as well as Advaita Vedanta. The idea involved a sort of collapsing of phenomenal reality into a uniform or single substrate or underlying principle. The word for non-duality in Buddhism is advaya. The word is associated with the Madhyamaka teaching of the non-duality of absolute and relative truth, and Yogacara notions of unity as well. These teachings, explains Samuel, have been influential to the development of Mahayana Buddhism, not only in India, but also in East Asian and Tibetan Buddhism, most notably in Zen and Vajrayana. The amount of scholarly work that has been done on non-dualistic thought within various Eastern traditions is staggering. Within Hinduism, not only is the idea present to varying degrees within Vedanta and Kashmir Shaivism, but also a contemporary vernacular tradition known as Neo-Advaita, which draws on modern Western reading of the teachings of Ramana Maharshi. According to Arthur Versluh, professor and department chair of religious studies in the College of Arts and Letters at Michigan State University, Neo-Advaita is part of a larger religious current which he calls immediatism, the assertion of immediate spiritual illumination without much, if any, preparatory practice within a particular religious tradition. This immediatism is one of the main criticisms of Neo-Advaita because, although this unity of consciousness, this state of being, may appear to be spontaneous, it almost always follows long periods of preparation through ascetic or meditative contemplative practice, which may include ethical injunctions. Notable Neo-Advaita teachers are H.W.L. Punja and his students Gangaji, Andrew Cohen, and Eckhart Tolle. Jeff Foster, a modern teacher of non-duality, has this to say about the spiritual path. Quote, "The essential oneness, wholeness, completeness, unity of life, a wholeness which exists here and now, prior to any apparent separation. Despite the compelling appearance of separation and diversity, there is only one universal essence, one reality. Oneness is all there is, and we are included." Another modern teacher of non-duality is Rupert Spira. Spira claims that when we realize that what we essentially are is inherently peaceful and unconditionally fulfilled, our suffering comes to an end. Spira holds that even meditative and contemplative practices are still within the realm of searching for happiness, and once we have non-dual understanding, the searching stops because we realize that we already are happiness. It brings our suffering to an end. In a way, non-duality argues that non-duality and duality are both true in their own way at the same time. This nuanced understanding is hard to grasp, and without it, people can become very stubborn and militant in preaching non-duality. Non-duality is an exploration in seeing. What you think will never change what is. You can argue anything forever, but all arguments happen at the conceptual level. Concepts are only echoes of the ineffable truth, and so you can argue which echo is right or wrong, but it doesn't matter.
This is non-duality already, this open space of effortless awakeness. It's just this. It's already here, always been here, always will be. Just the open space.
Non-duality is what is, what we have. You have always lived in non-duality. The experience of non-duality is not other than this.
It's not personal, it's impersonal, it's intuitive, it's this. So you know all of this. You know all of this. You are this.
As you can see, these people are insane. And that is one of the foremost criticisms of non-duality, that it is non-realism. If non-duality is non-realism, then it makes any philosophical discourse pointless. It renders philosophy itself useless, no better than the ramblings of a madman. Whether non-duality has merit, or whether it is insane psychobabble, I will leave up to you. There are plenty of amazing lectures, books, and other resources on the topic, which can be found simply by using Google, YouTube, or Wikipedia. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.